Hi, I'm Alex Dyke, and of course this is the one and only Mike Reed. Welcome back to the Isle of Wight, Mike.
Thanks. It's always good to come over to the island. It has a special feel. I like islands. I go to Guernsey and Jersey and Herm a lot, and I just think the islands have a special feel, and the people that live there have something special about them.
Special needs?
Yes. I mean, I know they've let you out of secure accommodation just for today, but that's great. We'll take you back afterwards. But no, I've always felt, as a Piscean, I always think there's something magical about the sea, and I'm always drawn to the sea. I found it very romantic and very inspiring. So, although it's only a few miles across from the mainland, you still feel bizarrely, although that you've gone abroad.
But you're a traveller. Every time I phone you, you're on your mobile, and you're off to do a thing with Robin Gibb, or you're going up to do a radio show in Hull, or you're doing something in London, or you're in Cornwall. I mean, you're always on the road, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, this year I've been on the road around the world as well. This year I've been working in Cape Town, New York, Venice, Austria, Nicaragua, El Salvador, the Canaries, Luxembourg, Mexico. I've had a really interesting year working in various places. Some places doing lectures and talks, which is interesting because they say, what are you going to talk about? I said, well, I'm not really sure until I get there. But then you sort of try and entertain the troops with a little bit of a mixture of some of the stuff you've done and what have you. So it's great. It's a great way of seeing the world. And in a few months, I'm going to the Baltic. I've never been to the Baltic or St. Petersburg, and I'm going there to do the same. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do love travelling around England. I really do love my country. And people haven't travelled around Britain enough, I don't think. I mean, I've been all in nooks and crannies. If I see someone with an interesting name, I think, well, I'll just pop down there and have a look. So I find it fascinating, our country. People don't explore it enough.
How do you stay focused? You know, if you're doing a movie script, or you're doing a book on poetry, or you're recording an album, or doing a radio show, and at the moment you're doing this blue plaque thing, which I'll ask you about in a moment, how do you stay focused on one thing and complete it and see it through to the end whilst doing something else?
I'm lucky in that there are 10 million things I'm hopeless at, and I've identified a few things that I'm good at, and those things I can very easily multitask. I can work hard. I love it if the phone goes and someone says, we need a book, we need a musical, we need a song. I mean, those are things I love doing. I love creating, I love coming up with ideas, and I just find that easy. I mean, if my car stopped, I don't find it easy. I've got to call the garage and say, help me. Suddenly I'm Mr. Pathetic. But the things I do, I know I can do well, and I enjoy doing them. And I think it's lucky, very, very lucky to have a passion, to be able to get up in the morning and enjoy whatever it is you're doing that day. It's terribly lucky.
What about these blue plaques then? Because you were driving around the Isle of Wight this morning, just before this interview, looking for blue plaques. Why are they so special, and what are you doing to try and bring more notice and attention to them?
Well, it's part of, we're launching a new Sky TV channel, and one of the formats that I put together is around the blue plaques, tentatively titled, rather feebly, Blue is the New Plaque. No, and I've sort of grouped them together and hopefully get a different presenter for each one. And they're absolutely fascinating. You know, you take a street in London, you say, like, okay, the Essex Street Gang, and Samuel Johnson in his latter days, just before he died, used the pub there as a meeting room and charged people sixpence each to come and hear him talk and what have you. So he had a bit of loot in his pocket. And Charles Stewart, the pretended Bonnie Prince Charlie, actually stayed in Essex Street as well while he was trying to get whip up some frenzy for the Jacobite rebellion in London. And also one of our former mayors, a chap called Brass, lived there as well, and he was the first one to challenge the parliamentary debates and say you shouldn't be allowed to publish them. Eventually, of course, Hansard did, but he ended up in the Tower as the Mayor of London, and because he took on the Commons, we got the phrase bold as brass. And I thought actually it'd be quite good to maybe try and get Boris to present that one, because he'd enjoy and get different presenters to do them. So it's fascinating. Behind every plot there is a story, even if you don't know the name and think, who the hell's that? I've never heard of that.
Well, if they got a blue plaque,
there
must be an interesting person really to have achieved one. Do you know how many there are in Britain, and can you have more than one per person?
Oh yeah, you can have more than one per person. Some people have several dotted around. But no, it was originally conceived in Victorian times, and then the LCC took it over, the London County Council, and the Greater London Council took it over. And it's added, I think they're originally brown, and it became blue, then blue, the white bit around the outside. And some are done by public subscription. Some aren't, sanctioned by Westminster. Some people just put them up on a wall. I mean, in Cheltenham, for example, carved into the house, Wilson, who was one of the guys with Scott in the Antarctic, is actually carved in beautiful Roman lettering in the Cotswold stone. It's not even a plaque, it's in giant letters that Wilson, who died with Scott in the Antarctic, lived there, which is quite fascinating. So there's a story behind all of them, and I was initially looking at doing something for Radio 4, and I thought, no, it's actually visual, this. For example, Hendrix and Handel lived next door to each other in Brook Street, 200 years apart, but I thought, what if they'd been contemporaries? So why don't we get somebody to do a bit of the water music a la Hendrix? If he popped round and said, "Is this your new bit? Oh, let's see what it sounds like." Just interesting things like that where you can put bits together.
And finally, radio and wightFM. I mean, we're thrilled that you're here working with us. Wi-Fi radio, we're saying it's the future. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I have to admit, I'm not technical. I always say I do the voice, governor. And I'm passionate about the music. The technicalities and the way forward and the way things are going, I never quite like to hazard a guess. I mean, I think the ancients would have been terribly surprised at all the gizmos we have now, and the fact you can instantaneously text, talk, see someone at the other side of the world. It would have been white man's magic, a few hundred years ago. But no, I mean, the way forward technically is quite interesting. I mean, I think we do have in Britain far too many radio stations. I think it's sort of depleted the talent and the money and the budget, and the same with TV. I just think there are far too many TV stations. I think the radio authority, Nalcom, should have said, right, we'll have a station for this area, will encompass 3 or 4 counties, whatever, East Anglia, the South East, Wessex, the West Country, and had a station for those. Then they would have been able to stand up financially and look after themselves. But as it is, a lot of stations have very small catchment areas. They're fighting each other. There's no budget. You get people running stations on literally a shoestring and just trying to make ends meet. And I don't think that's what I think it's very short-sighted of them. I think they should have had, like Germany, more, maybe 10, 12 big regional stations. I think it would have helped the industry, it would have helped the economy, and I think it was short-sighted the way they did it.
Well, let's hope you enjoy working here at wightFM with us, and thanks ever so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.